Most people seem to think that the Bronze Age didn't have a lot going on. Now, that's based on teachings of the era. It's very basic, because we don't know a whole lot about it like we do, say, the Romans or early Greece. And this is mostly not being able to read ancient texts or just not finding a lot of historical sites in the areas of Mesopotamia and the Levant in comparison to later civilizations like Persia and Bactria. I even had no idea about most of the civilizations I'll be talking about in the next few minutes until I started researching this video. As far as the Bronze Age goes, most people know about things like early Egypt, Babylonia, Assyria, and the Akkadians, Sargon of Akkad, but little else about the kingdoms, city-states, and even other empires that roamed the region before the Bronze Age collapse. I want to try and look a bit more into some of these lesser-known civilizations, starting with Ebla. Ebla, which is situated in modern-day northwestern Syria, was a prominent kingdom between the 3rd and middle 2nd millennium BC. And Ebla reminds me a little bit of Egypt in that it had 3 main phases before being sucked up into larger empires for good. I want to split these videos into 3, showcasing each of the 3 Ebla kingdoms. So here's the first, and possibly best, Ebla kingdom. The first Ebla kingdom lasted from 3000 BC roughly to 2300 BC, the end period being known as the First Destruction. This kingdom has little in the way of archival evidence, only starting to reveal archives in and around 2400 BC, so only 100 years before its demise. Before this time, we have just excavations like of the royal palace built in around 2700 BC, and information from neighboring kingdoms like Mari about a war starting between them in the late 24th century BC. The war itself went fairly poorly for Ebla overall, from what we know. Mari conquered many of Ebla's cities. However, Ebla did manage to come out on top after King Damu defeated Mari in the middle of the 25th century. While this battle ended this particular war, we do know war continued later on when the Mari conquered the Amar region, which is north of modern-day Aleppo. This particular war had Ebla's king paying tribute to the Mari. The Ebla kingdom did end this tribute, however, afterwards, with allying with 2 neighboring kingdoms and defeating Mari in the final battle at Turka. Turka was archived, but before tribute payments to Mari, all of this came from Mari information, or excavation, as no archival evidence, as I said before, had been found before this time. Keeping in mind, too, when I say archival, most of this writing and evidence was political or economical, like John bought 4 horses in trade of 2 cows from Bob kind of stuff. Very little was in a cultural nature. Though, thanks to the political writings, we do know of things like Turka, the kings of the time, as well as things like their education. We do know Ebla's extent of control, which is quite impressive for a lesser-known kingdom of the era. It controlled land near equivalent to the size of modern-day Syria, from the western banks of the Euphrates and the border-ish with Turkey in the north, to Damascus in the south, the coastal mountains to the west, and Hadu to the east. For its time, this was a pretty big area to control. Ebla also had a pretty modest population. The city itself numbered in around 40,000, and the entire kingdom was over 200,000, which is pretty impressive for the time. Nearly all of them were Semites in their cultural beliefs. They also spoke their own language, the Ebelite language, being one of the oldest attested Semite languages known. Economically, Ebla was quite wealthy. The palace controlled the economy, giving rations to its permanent and seasonal workers in the cities, and villages and landowners paying an annual share to the palace. Ebla traded with other states quite a bit as well, exporting timber and textiles as well as handicrafts, and it traded with a wide variety of peoples as far away as Afghanistan. Ebla's first kingdom was by far the richest, though the second had a pretty booming economy as well. Religiously, Ebla is polytheistic. The first kingdom worshipped dead kings, as well as had a huge pantheon dedicated to gods, which divided them kind of into genres. I won't go into the different genres and meanings in this video, as this is just kind of an overview of Ebla and just kind of, letting you know, hey, these guys existed. But perhaps in a future video, we'll go deeper into their gods and how their genres stack them up. Finally, though, the end times. The first kingdom of Ebla was destroyed. That we do know. But it's the how, much like the end of the Bronze Age itself, that we don't fully know. But there are theories. The first one is conquest, and there's a couple of conquestors here. One of them that I subscribe to a little more than others, but we'll go through them. A bunch of theories run here. Mesopotamians who boasted taking tribute from Mari, or Lugal-Zagassi of Umma, who claimed to have reached the Mediterranean. Though I kind of more subscribe on the conquest side that Sargon of Akkad's grandson, Naram-Sin, claiming to have destroyed a town called Ebla in their records. Historical evidence puts them in the area at the time of Ebla's fall as well, so it's totally possible. The second is revenge from Mari. The destruction of Ebla is very close to the final battle at Turka, where Ebla defeated Mari with its allies. The theory prevails that Mari got revenge by invading and sacking the city. And lastly, on the theories, is natural disaster. The main theory here is that a great fire destroyed the area of the royal palace, and that there's not really any evidence of looting, which would happen in conquest. I personally find the Akkadian invasion most likely, seeing as Mari couldn't defeat Ebla at Turka anyhow. How could they, in such a short time, gather a force enough to destroy such a great and powerful city? And a blaze is harder to accept for me, as a kingdom that powerful and that rich would generally just rebuild, especially if just a portion of the city was lost, like they're saying. But it's all speculation. No one really knows, and unfortunately, we probably never will. Ebla's first kingdom is an amazing wonderment of early Bronze Age civilizations, and it's sad that they, along with many others, are so overlooked when talking about history. It's hard to know much about them due to it being lost with time, but it's always worth taking a look way back in the past and saying, hey, these guys did exist too, and they contributed to everything we have today. Tune in next time where we look at the second Eblaean kingdom. It's shortest surviving of the three too, so maybe we can find out why. Thanks for watching.